I'm joined with Ron Partain. We're continuing our conversation about the Patriot infighting that's happening that we're seeing. We brought Juan '07 on that's going to touch on some certain subjects, and we'll obviously talk about what's been happening most recently. But I welcome both of you on. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Thanks for having me, brother. Good to see you on, or see your boots.
See a building.
Hey, yeah. Well, yeah. Yep.
There we go.
So Juanito, it's me and Juan were just, Juanito, me and Ron were just talking about how there's just so much confusion happening right now, a lot of infighting happening right now. We really got to just nip it in the butt, because I think a lot of it has just been misconstrued, and it's just.
Well, let me just stop it right there. I don't think there is a lot of infighting. There may be, a couple of people that have a different viewpoint and they're being animated about it, and some hosts that are covering it. But the reality is, we just had the largest turnout for a Patriot event. One of the largest audiences ever at the Turning Point event out there in Phoenix over the weekend. 14,000 attendees. We had the Clay Clark thing. People came out of the woodwork to attend both of those events. And, that's not indicative of things coming off the rails. In somebody's dreams, the Patriots are coming off the rails. The reality is that we've had an amazing last couple of weeks of wins. Georgia Friday, there was the stuff sent to the governor showing that there was almost 18,000 votes that absolutely were fraudulent, just from one county there at Fulton County. And we have numerous things that have come up: Wisconsin, Michigan, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Arizona, all of them with new developments in the legal arena, et cetera, that are laying the groundwork for having to remove those electoral college votes, which has happened previously in history. There's a bunch of other stuff coming to a head. We have the disclosures out of Pat Burns' operations, with the actual interviews, the recorded interviews from the time, and then new recorded statements from the people involved, where Jack Smith, who's been going after Trump, has been documented by these whistleblowers as having blackmailed murderers for payoffs in order not to proceed with prosecutions over at the International Criminal Court. And the assertion that he's being blackmailed himself to go after Trump, or they're going to, let those criminal charges come after him, to get him to keep going forward. And then, by the way, just so people have an understanding of this, yes, Jack Smith, he moved this action to the Supreme Court. Ooh, we're so scared. It doesn't convict Trump if the Supreme Court decides, yes, that a former president can be prosecuted for crimes committed in office or after. They're not immune from prosecution. That's what the question is before the Supreme Court. Well, if the court decides that a former president can be prosecuted for crimes while in office, does that mean Trump's going to get convicted of crimes? Who's really got to be afraid if the court decides that? What other presidents may have conducted all sorts of crimes?
So we're laying the trap, right?
Come on. This is about, I would say that's further setting the traps, bringing the trap. Yeah.
I think so, Juan. I think that's exactly what's
and there's 50 other things. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Even these prosecutions for financial crimes and other stuff, is Trump actually guilty? If you're going to be able to go after Trump for all that stuff, who is the real people involved in some of these financial crimes, and who's actually in danger? Because did Trump actually do it? And over, assertions that he misstated the value of properties on a loan or something,
Oh, I think his
where
connections.
Your connection's bad, Juan.
paid back. Nobody lost a penny. Happened with the. I'm sorry, I'm in Africa and I don't have the greatest
Why don't you
coverage. I was waiting to come back. Yeah,
maybe try just doing audio only without video. I think the video might be taking some bandwidth that you could be using on audio. We probably get better audio.
Juan, I get while you're doing that, I guess the reason I was talking about the Patriot infighting is obviously what has just recently happened, and I've been seeing it all over my Twitter, and you're saying that you believe that I see people just very frustrated and confused right now. So maybe we could just touch on that and put that to rest right now. What do you say, Juanito?
Well, I mean, what's to put to rest? The question is, has everything been done that's possible from, say, my end or the Flynn's end or President Trump's end to bring the information that Mike Gill has to some meaningful action? Have I failed to do justice to Mike Gill specifically or to the subject matter that he's brought forward? Is somebody doing dirt to Mike Gill or the American people by not pursuing these things fully somehow? And the fact of the matter is, that's just fraudulent. It's not. Look at all the stuff from the J6 stuff. Think about this. We have all sorts of real evidence that federal agents, federal contractors were behind this fraud of an insurrection on January 6th. We've been on that in my movie, The Call, The Makings of a Perfect Day. We documented some of that and talked about it all the way back the day after January 6th. And we've been hard on it ever since. Have we been able to get the federal government cornered for the work that was done by contractors and against the American people on January 6th? We brought stuff to Congress. We had a crooked Congress. The Democrats were in charge, and we got nowhere in the first part of the January 6th hearings. This year, we've gotten a lot of traction. I said 2023 is the year of the whistleblower. We've gotten a lot of traction. Are we done? No. The Panama Papers, I have said repeatedly, unendingly, that they are critical because they show the pattern of how this was being done. But it didn't start with the Panama Papers. I was dealing with some of this stuff all the way back in the 80s, BCCI, Arkansas Development Finance Authority, the bond issues going on out of Arkansas, the stuff that was not run back through and unwound through the banking system on the money we used to collapse the Soviet Union. Huge volumes of money. We have stuff that's far more current, and it shows that the cancer in New Hampshire and North Dakota wasn't confined there, even when it was going on there. We have the Oklahoma situation where $50 million was run through an LLC in Oklahoma to throw the Philippines elections involving Smartmatic. There was a case that got filed. We got around the U.S. Attorneys and Justice Department and got something filed, and they didn't see it coming. They've been trying to get that filed for 3 years. And finally, somebody got just the right angle and timing to get it in. Now it's before a judge, and they can't stop it. We've had victories all over the place. The Pat Byrne stuff with Jack Smith, that's coming out with documents and statements. To go back, Pat Byrne, he has been talking about as a whistleblower for all the way back to 2017, the fact that he was involved in setting up Hillary Clinton, and she took a bribe of $18 million while she was a candidate for U.S. president. Has she gone to jail? Has Congress chosen to bring charges? Has the Justice Department brought charges? Has everybody tried? Why can't we get criminal charges against Hillary Clinton on that? We have a witness who's gone on the record, wrote a book, Deep Capture, has done interviews and articles on that. Did somebody not do their job right? Are we not pushing it hard? You have a corrupt Justice Department at many levels. I did an extensive, long interview with Ethan Lucas earlier today. I did another one with Jerry Foley and talked about it. I don't want to repeat it right here now. There's been lots of people working very hard, including on the material that Mike Gill has. And to say that nobody's addressed it or that he's being blocked or stopped, and especially by me or you, Nino, is bullshit. And by the way, one other thing, I don't like people putting words in my mouth. When I got on the phone with Mike, because you called me and asked me if I could join you, and I did.
He wanted to talk to you. He asked me
and
to
I
reach
said,
out to you.
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, and
you didn't ask to talk to him.
Get him on the phone. Let's talk. But what I want to say is this: he started the conversation explaining to me how General Flynn was working for the government and was part of the setup of Trump on the January 6th stuff, and that he's a federal agent and was part of the contractor teams, which I have discussed, federal contractor teams, and that he had to be part of it because they never charged him, and everybody else at the Capitol got charged. And he didn't. So he has to be a bad guy. And I'm sitting there going, that's bullshit. And I don't believe it for a second. There's nothing in there. Just because he's there and he didn't get charged doesn't mean he's on the other team. And he laid out his logic and all this stuff about why it is and how we have to expose Flynn. And now he's saying that I agreed to that. He sent you text. Didn't he say that? Didn't he say that? Didn't he say that? No, I didn't. There's no prayer that I would.
And can I be honest, Juan? It was so bad. It was like I understand the guy's frustration. I get it, man. He's probably under a lot of stress,
and so do I.
Right, but I had to, Juan. You know me. I was trying to put together another podcast. I kept putting the phone down. I was listening to you guys peripherally. I was kind of just. I finally got on the phone and I said, Juan, all I heard was you, Juan, saying, "Calm, Mike, take deep breaths. Mike, take deep breaths." He was yelling, he was screaming, he was mad, and I get it. But that's what I heard you say, Juan. Was Mike, please step back, take deep breaths. That's all I heard. And then I just finally got on there and said, guys, I gotta go. I gotta get on another podcast because it was almost inaudible.
Well, and as you know, I told you after the fact, I stayed on the phone with him for a significant period of time, but I was in the middle of travel. And I had to catch a flight. I couldn't talk any longer. I tried to get back to him later on. He didn't pick up. And then I was unavailable after that. And, I, on a dime, because something came up, had to leave the country and been gone for 2 weeks. And I had no real notice that I was doing that. And then, even statements like, and he's hiding out in Africa. He had to run because of what I'm saying. Come on, man. Get off your high horse.
And see, that type of shit. That type of shit discredits him when he says crazy shit like that.
Can I say something? Everybody. I think the problem that goes on here is that we all see things from our own unique perspective, and sometimes we probably think that what we have is the nail that's going to it's the nail in the coffin that's going to seal it's going to break the case when we're just one person and we're trying to persuade the detective that we have the thing that's going to break the case wide open. Meanwhile, the detective who is call them the Trump team, they're looking at a much larger mosaic. And they see what you see, but they see it in the context of a much bigger picture. And I think that when, our little silo, sometimes we get so consumed with the things that are in our little silo, that we think that we know what's best, and that if you don't act on what we're saying, then you're somehow dirty. And I think that is a trap that way too many people get involved in.
Well,
in
hold
my
on.
opinion.
Hold on.
Well, let
Wait a
me
second.
dive in here. This
But
is
Juan,
this is
he's second, but he wait. He is to me willing to burn everything down with everybody inside the building if you don't agree with him or appease his needs. And that's what scared me. That's where I got like, whoa, man. He's even throwing me under the bus.
again. Here's part of the issue. Is President Trump president at this time able to act like king? Was he even able to act like king when he was president? There's certain processes that have to be honored. Oh no, he can do this, and he can stop it, and he can do it immediately. And there's only 3 ways for Trump to proceed at this point in time. Really? Seriously? You got some of the best legal teams in the world. There's all sorts of things that I disagree with in the way that the legal teams have proceeded on behalf of Trump. But then again, there is a process that has to be honored, and there's give and take. You know, how's this play out with, you know, lots of other things they have going. And again, nobody dissed Mike. Nobody discounted his findings and the people around him on the Panama Papers. And by the way, Mike isn't the only one involved in the Panama Papers. He had legal people that he hired, and you know, to do what he did there. But there was journalists all over the world that were involved in looking at this issue that contributed to those papers, and to try and bring this forward. And the Panama Papers are out there. We had a Democrat Congress that didn't want to hear any of this stuff. And, you know, there's only certain ways you can get in there. We had a Justice Department. Look, if you can't get the Justice Department to look at an $18 million payoff, you couldn't get the Justice Department and the U.S. attorneys to look at 50,000 paper ballots destroyed in Florida in an election in Florida, you know, well before, you know, a year before they were allowed to be destroyed in Tim Canova's case. You couldn't get stuff done on lots and lots of different cases with huge whistleblowers coming forward. Look at the Hunter Biden laptop, and nothing of significant happens there. They say it's Russia, Russia, Russia. A contractor comes in and tells us that he was in the room the next morning after Seth Rich was murdered and heard contractors from the Justice Department that he knows personally, that he named to House and Senate Judiciary Committees shortly after Seth Rich was murdered, named and said he heard them laughing about the way that Seth Rich died when they killed him, begging for his life. And nothing's happened on that. There are lots and lots and lots of lanes. Now, it is maturing right now. It's coming to a head. There's lots of things coming to a head. And I believe that we come through 2023, the year of the whistleblower, and 2024 is the year when justice begins to move in like a flood. And we see the first arrests. We see some of this stuff coming out in the public. Look, right now, we're just a few weeks away from disclosures concerning exactly how the election was stolen county by county, 3,000 counties across America, and there was foreign involvement in that. And we've been aware of that, but waiting for the right opportunities to bring some of that forward in the right venues. Including, we also have, look, January 6th, the floods are coming out. We have now the video we didn't have previously showing Capitol Police in their uniforms inside the congressional building before the doors were unlocked, going into restrooms, and then coming out changed into pro-Trump MAGA outfits and hats to disguise themselves as Trump supporters before the doors were opened, and then they started their little melee inside of the Capitol building. Who was involved with that? And we know some of the contractors' names. They came out and says, I'm not going to be, I cannot be part of this. They've tried to whistleblow and haven't been able to. So to say there's a whistleblower that's the only one, look at how many people that have been in there fighting for all it's worth, including other very wealthy people. Pat Byrne has spent most of his fortune on these issues trying to get to justice in America. Why? Because if we don't get back to justice on these issues, there's no America. Look at Mike Lindell. He spent huge fortune trying to get to the truth on this stuff. We have lots of other guys that are in similar situations and are very wealthy, and they've thrown it all in. And people that, may not be as wealthy as those guys, but they put huge amounts of money that, are years of their income and huge parts of their life to try to get justice. We have people that are federal agents who've come forward and put their careers on the line. A friend down in Florida showing that SES is involved in corruption of these federal agents and paying them off. So they're not just working for the FBI, they're working for senior executive service, and they're getting paid by senior executive service to do things outside of their job description while working for the FBI. Who are they working for? SES or FBI? And what and is that lawful the way it's being done? And what are they doing? Subverting the Constitution with payoffs like they offered to Trennis Evans. $35,000 a month if you'll just be an informant against the J6 people. Are you serious? And that's part of the court filings. And the judge is asking the FBI, explain this. Why is a federal agent offering this money to this person? And then saying that, but there'll be no record of it anywhere. Well, where's the money coming from? SES. We got so many things. There's lots of whistleblowers. I think it does an injustice, a disservice to all the other whistleblowers to act as though there's only one person that can save America.
Agreed.
One person. And by the way, his evidence has been out there within this community, and it has been talked about, and it has been before congressional members. And they haven't seen the right entry point with it, given the captured nature of the Justice Department. If there's people in the Justice Department, as the contractor said on the Seth Rich thing, 2 years after Seth Rich was killed on July 10th, 2016, and he was the source of the WikiLeaks stuff, okay? It was direct. It didn't come Russia. That's complete bullshit, and everybody knows it. That came from Seth Rich. It went through his brother. It went to WikiLeaks. That's why WikiLeaks stopped for the murderer of Seth Rich. Even though they didn't say it was Seth, that they had got that information from Seth, they implied it because it was so egregious. And then all this time, 2 years after the fact, this whistleblower, a contractor who was vetted by Judicial Oversight Committee and Justice Committee in Congress, both the House and the Senate. He was vetted to be who he said he was, doing the work he said he does on the payroll of the Justice Department as a contractor. So this wasn't somebody just pulling bullshit out their ass. And that contractor, in a news conference where he appeared over a phone line with his attorney present in the room, with 50 journalists there in the room, said to the world what he told Congress in closed hearings, that these contractors, other people he worked with that he named names, that they were involved in blackmail, honeypots, extortion, and murder. And we had a Supreme Court justice that died under mysterious circumstances.
Indeed, we
so
did.
when that contractor said that, did anything happen? Congress heard it. He came out to the whole world and said, he told the Congress in those private committees. The same thing with Burns. He testified for the J6 committee in private because they didn't want the whole world to hear it. He's talked with people at the Justice Department, senators and House members, and explained about the bribe with Hillary Clinton. Why haven't they acted? Because they haven't had what they believed was a winnable situation because the politics involved and the players involved, because it's a captured operation. That's why he called his book Deep State. And by the way, every person listening to this broadcast should go read Deep Capture by Burning. You get it for like $5 online. Okay, simple. You can read the article, which is much shorter, that was done by the Washington magazine. I can't remember the name of it, but just punch in Burn and the magazine, you can get it for free. And it's pretty thorough.
Is that deepcapture.com?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so think about, the reason I mention that is, you want to talk about a whistleblower. He has exceptionally actionable material that goes all the way to Brennan, Comey, and Obama. And he talks about it in his book related to the payoff with Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't just one. They brought him in because they said that she had multiple payoffs, and then they were going to blackmail her. What was going to happen? She was going to be blackmailed. Think about this. After she got to the presidency, once Byrne got her on this stuff, all of a sudden they said, you got to forget everything you've heard. You got to pretend you never heard it. Don't ever say another word. And they implied that Patrick Byrne's life was in instant danger if anybody thought that he was going to say anything. So he's told to just forget the whole thing. Well, Byrne thought he was working on behalf of the American people, American government, to get the bad guy. And now he's got to shut up. What were they really doing? They were going to blackmail Hillary if ever she looked like she was not going to stay on the reservation to do whatever somebody wanted. Really? Somebody where? Obama? Who was going to do something against her? The Justice Department? Exactly what the contractor told the world July 10th of 2018 in that news conference. Honeypots, blackmail, extortion, murder, and related to Seth Rich. So what's going on over at the Justice Department? Now you're going to sit there and Mike Gill's going to shoot us all in the ass because we aren't getting his evidence to the right place, and we're not doing anything, and we're just sitting on our hands, and Flynn's behind it, I'm behind it, other people, they just aren't listening to him. Get it done. Trump has 3 options, and that's all he has in the whole world, and his legal team just has to do this. Excuse me. Mike's information is out there. I pushed hard with his information. And by the way, it's not the first or the last or the only information on the financial crimes. We had it all the way back to the 80s and the 90s. And we have it now with more current stuff. It's not just 2 states that the guys got in the Panama Papers, which sets the pattern. That's why I love what they have. Look, I'm not trying to shoot Mike in the ass. I don't want to hit a guy when he's down. He put out hundreds of millions of dollars of his fortune, lost it because he went up against these bad guys, and they've got him in a corner. And somewhere along the way, he needs to be made whole. So I'm not going to hit Mike. Mike's put it all on the line. If he's frustrated, I totally get it. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of the coin is, don't attack other team members. Look, the Flynn thing, he raised that. I had to call over to the Flynn camp and say, hey, look, I didn't say that. And they said, we know. Shoot, we've dealt with Mike.
I'm a
we tried to do it.
I know you didn't say that. I know you didn't say that.
Well,
what you did say,
and
though,
so
what I think how he misconstrued it was, as you were talking him down, you kept saying, Mike, I know, Mike. Calm down, Mike. Take deep breaths. I think he took you saying, okay, Mike, I know, as confirmation.
Well, okay, hold on a second. And I want to pick right up there on that, Nino. Here's the other thing. I did an interview with you. I was with Loy Brunson. It was during your morning show, which goes live onto YouTube, so we have to be careful what we say. And you always warn me because it's a live show. If I screw something up, you can get a strike. So I was teasing with the audience. A lot of your people remember it. And I said, hey, I'm wearing my brand new Iron Man suit, and it's extra thick for, to protect me from radiation, because I'm here with a radioactive person that I can't even say their name on YouTube because it might get you pulled down. Okay. I was having a little bit of fun audience over the Brunson stuff. Trump had just retweeted our thing a couple of days earlier about the Brunson case, and everybody should send a letter. And so I was having some fun with it. And in the course of that, I said, yeah, and it's just like, other names like, Mike Gill and others, you can't even say their name. And we might even not be able to do it on Rumble because there's issues over there at times. And I didn't say it's every time. Well, shoot, Mike, part of the thing he was all livid about, you're trying to block me. You're telling hosts not to put me on the air anymore because I'll get blocked out. They'll lose their channels. That's not true. I mean, everybody go back and listen to the interview. I was actually giving him a hat tip for the work he's doing, because we're finding information that takes what Mike and the Panama Papers had and goes to a whole new level. Some of that we developed before Mike came out in this 6 months or so ago, 8 months ago. And I partnered with a lot of people and told hosts, you need to give Micah some airtime because he's got this stuff. He's been out there before a few years back, and it's still fresh. You got to give him a hand. I was pushing Mike very hard to these other hosts, but it's not the only game in town. A flood of whistleblowers has come forward, and what we found, in fact, I mentioned on the other shows that I did earlier today or yesterday, we had one of the state attorney generals that got briefed on something in their state. It was just one of thousands of transactions that we found where they just had 4 properties that were worth less than $1 million, probably about less than even $800,000. And as soon as they were closed on in this little bundling thing, the company that closed these 4 properties ends up getting a $7.5 billion loan against those 4 properties. Now, that's part of this money laundering scam. And in fact, we've traced, in the Panama Papers, it was 1.2 trillion. Right now, in the stuff that we've been tracking for about 2 years now and expanding on, that involves about 30 states that we have looked at closely. The numbers right now are in the multiple tens of trillions. Now, that money's never going to be realized by anybody. Nobody's going in and buying a country with their tens of trillions of dollars. What they're doing is they're using it to get interest money. Remember when they did the little bank scam back there at the end of the Bush administration? If we hadn't acted, the world's financial system would have collapsed within 24 hours. And so they were throwing money everywhere to close holes, okay? It's a Ponzi scheme. It is going to come unraveled catastrophically. In fact, that's the greatest danger for the next maneuver that's coming ahead of us. These people realize we're coming. And so they're going to blow the whole world up to stop us from going to them and getting justice. And that means most likely something in the financial arena. So again, it makes Mike's information very relevant. But then to say that we're not doing something, or we should be doing something, or Trump should be doing something, is pretty presumptuous, as though you're the only hero in this whole situation that knows the answer. And that's just not true. We have a lot of brilliant minds looking at all the various dynamics, trying to come up with the proper solutions. And by the way, yes, there is a plan. And the plan has been misunderstood and misconstrued numerous times, but eventually it will be understood. The plan isn't justice at the Justice Department, the military taking over everything. Trump coming in and commanding everything like king. It's not just the gun running going on at the border with the extension of Fast and Furious into the cities, with guns being dropped off in the cities around the country to keep everybody fighting each other. Like there was bricks with BLM magically appearing on the street corners. It's guns in the alleys and getting us set up for some kind of civil insurrection, war, whatever. Is it the medical side with more of the jabs? Is it the manipulate 1,000 different things? Okay, there's
Very
no
similar
one lane that solves it.
One, it's very similar to that clip in that movie that was just released towards the end when
the Obama shit.
Yeah, exactly. When it's like they're all about getting us to fight each other and turn on each other and not know who to trust. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's all, there's so much information being thrown out there, and I think that was kind of the point to bring us back around to kind of what the point of the initial conversation. That was, I don't think that it's not just necessarily the people in the patriot space that are arguing amongst each other, but I think it's just a lot of people in general. There's chaos going on a lot out there, and people need us and the patriot community especially not to be arguing amongst each other, because they're looking to us as leaders. We are essentially, we may not be the captains. We may not be the captain of the Titanic, euphemistically speaking, but we are officers on board that ship. And the people that are all the public out there are looking to us because we are leaders in that movement, and we need to present a unified front, even if we're not necessarily on the same page. And I think that was the point that Nino and I really were trying to get to, initially speaking.
Well, let me dive in for one other thing here real quick. For example, the comments and the posts. I've got people that monitor that pretty closely. We're pretty passive about it, but we monitor what's out there and out across the internet for various reasons. And we've noted that the bot activity is to the moon. The first-time accounts is to the moon. You've got because of work that I did back before even the Twitter stuff with Musk came in, that someday will come out, but I'm not going to bring it out right now. We've got pretty sophisticated tracking systems for who the bot accounts are, if you will, and the AI-driven accounts, and then the handful of people that run those. One guy running 50 or 100 accounts, and then the AIs themselves running thousands of accounts. It's pretty interesting stuff. So we're watching that. The vast majority of the stuff trying to blow this thing up further with what Mike has done are coming from those. I'm not going to play that game. In fact, when I'm out of the country, of course, anytime I go anywhere, it seems like that's when stuff starts to want to come unraveled for whatever reason. It's just, the way it is. And so, I take a deep breath, and I'm not going to go hit somebody that's having a rough day or feels a certain way. Look, Mike has a suggestion. He's pissed off. He's got an idea. Great. He wants to vent. I'm glad it was me and not somebody else. Okay. Let's work through the problem. You got an idea what we could do next, or something that hasn't been done? But when I've gone through it and we look at the options, and the people go, look, I guarantee you, the guys over at the Justice Department, they're aware that we're coming. And the guys over at Congress in the Judicial Committee, they're very aware of what's in the Panama Papers, and they're very aware of what we've developed since. It's coming. It's coming like a freight train.
Let me ask you this. You say it's coming like a freight train, which I know you're right. You said 2023 was the year of the whistleblower. 2024 will be the year of justice. But will it also be the year of chaos? Because if this justice is coming like a freight train, they're obviously going to go all in. They're going to start with they're going to do some big panic. Go ahead.
The deal, Nino, a storm front is because you have hot and cold air interacting, and charged and negatively charged, positive and negatively charged particles. That's the basis for the storm front. There's a collision, and lightning and thunder and interactions are going to happen because it's good versus evil. And these people are very embedded. They're grounded, and we're having to come in there and try to rip them out of our system to get back to some type of constitutional operation of our government, and to get these players out. It's like going after Capone and the gang, okay? And Ness having to come in there and fight all these battles to get to the bad guys, the mobs. And it's not as simple maybe as it sounds. And what are you going to do? It's whack-a-mole. Well, we're just going to deal with this over the Justice Department. We're going to take care of New Hampshire. Okay, well, are you going to get North Dakota, or are you just getting New Hampshire? Well, if we get them, we'll get everybody. We're going to get the Sununu family and all that stuff and all those crime. What about the Clinton crime family? What about the Bush crime family? What about the McCain crime family? What about the Pelosi crime family? What about the Romney crime family? They're all in there in various operations that go into money laundering out of Ukraine and Israel and other locations. We're just going to get one, and then that's going to set an example for the rest. We're going to try to be thoroughly thorough. Remember, Trump said he was invited to run. Who invited him? And when they did that, did they have a plan? Yes. And what's the plan? It's not individuals. It's not just one thing. It's the people of the country waking up together to some certain point. Why did they turn the woke thing against us, to use that thing? Because we were using the woke term. They had to steal it from us because America was waking up.
Well, the awakening.
Okay? So they
took the awakening.
Yes, they've tried over and over to make it unobtainium, untouchable, for us to use terms about coming out of the days, coming out of the drug-induced days. You have, not just as Eisenhower warned us, a military-industrial complex. It's a media. It's a Justice Department. It's a medical. I mean, look at what happened with the jab. It's a combination of various things. Right now, it's the censorship industrial complex, censoring us in the various media and tamping it down. Yeah, maybe you can get something up on Rumble, but are the numbers that you're getting there, the views and the advertising like that, is that actually accurate? I know of a certain group, I don't want to say, that's in the process of vetting the numbers for a purchase there. And we've advised them behind the scenes, well, you need to look at this and this and this and this before you sign on the dotted line, because it's not what you think.
Don Jr. was even complaining. Don Jr. was even complaining about the algorithms, that he was even having to tell people
you have to consider, it's not just that you get canceled or your show gets stopped, but does it actually get promoted in the right way, or do others of your shows get tamped down because you did something they didn't like in another show and you're a host doing it? That's what I was referring to when I was talking about being radioactive and like that. And then don't take just a half a word or two and then turn around and say something that's not true, especially when somebody's trying to do you a solid, and then you turn around and act like you only heard part of it and that's the truth and it's the way it is, and you're lying. Excuse me, come on.
I've had, just in terms of the Rumble thing, I've actually had people, I've had multiple people tell me that they have been they've had to refollow me because they've been systematically unfollowed. I've had people that have said, Rumble unfollowed you. And I actually subscribed to myself and I was unfollowed.
Yeah. Well, and again, let me just say this though. I want to make sure that I don't want to pig pile on Mike. Look, is he a good guy? Yes. Is he passionate? Yes. Is he been done dirt? Yes. Okay. I'm not going to back off of that. Uh, you know, am I happy about the stuff over the last few days? I am not. Especially with the accusation against Flynn. Look, Flynn and I do not see things eye to eye on a number of subjects, but we cross paths pretty regularly, and he's in the next foxhole over. He is getting led down range and helping to get solid information and work out there and like that. Do I need everybody to see everything exactly the same way? No. We're both laboring hard to get us to the right outcome. And if he sees it differently, that's the value. I don't need everybody to be a spoon or a knife or a fork. We need each of them. And there's different ways that we're working in this, including behind the scenes. So I have massive respect for some of the stuff that they've done over there, with their activities and trying to help people to understand the moment we're in, because we do have to not just be at the 80+% of people working, moving in some type of concert. Okay, it doesn't mean lockstep. It means that we are moving the ball forward as a team to get to the right outcome, to get the monsters that have captured control of the ship of state. And the stuff that Mike has and the people around him and the Panama Papers stands on its own. But don't you can't have superhero syndrome. I remember back in the 90s with the Arkansas stuff, and I was deeply involved in that. And we thought a number of times that the information was such that you just couldn't survive this. There's no way they were going to survive this. And they did. We continued to be amazed at how big their influence was. I remember on the Oklahoma City stuff, there was a number of things related to that I was stunned that a couple players, we just could not get them on things. And we had huge insider whistleblowers on all sorts of issues related to that. I was on the horn with General Parton over at the Air Force on the BDA bomb assessment. And, literally within just probably 45 minutes of the bombing, and asking did that look like it was correct. And he came out later and says this wasn't just a fertilizer bomb. And he went on the record talking about that. We had, all the records that had been picked up related to the gun and money running out of Arkansas had been transferred. It had been, subpoenaed by the Senate Banking Committee. And yet, once it was subpoenaed, pulled together all the original records out of Arkansas, it was moved to the Oklahoma City building before it was going to go to Washington, D.C., conveniently, and then blown up. And then when it didn't all get blown up, and there were still lots and lots of papers being recovered, they said that you can't go in the building, it's too damaged, and they just bulldozed it in to cover up all those records. The original records from all the investigators related to what was going on in Arkansas. Why? Because it was a CIA black operation, okay? And the money laundering is a black operation. And the money laundering that was going on in the 90s, it was BCCI, and then it was the various development finance authorities in a dozen states. And then it was the money washing back through from toppling the Soviet Union. And then it was the collapse in 2007-8 with the tail end of the Bush administration. It's the same players, and much of it the same money being rolled over and magnified that was then stuff up in New Hampshire and North Dakota, and now it's metastasized cancers all through the body of the United States. Literally, when we finally get to the bottom of this, it'll be every single state is having these real estate frauds, then the LLC frauds, and the numbers are absolutely incomprehensible to most people. There's no sane mind that can get to it.
What you're saying, Juan, is it's going to be ADVA on on steroids.
Well, it goes up by huge magnifiers as they
Right.
continue to have to change the game to the next phase. Okay.
The-
And running, that money that went to Iran and the money.
what he's talking about is he's talking about the Arkansas Development Finance Authority,
For the payoffs and everything else.
Yeah.
And we've been sold down the river. Look at the pittance of money that's been uncovered related to the Biden stuff with Hunter and all that. If they actually sold us down the river just for the numbers that we already know, then they got bought off, for fractions.
Juan, if I may,
tiny fractions of a cent.
Juan, if I may, just for the audience reference, because they probably don't know what you're talking about. The Arkansas Development Finance Authority essentially was what that was how the Clintons operated all of the money laundering. What they would do is they would give out loans.
Well, it's not quite exactly accurate. It wasn't the Clintons.
No,
it was CIA money.
You're right.
It was done under Bill Clinton's watch. He had sole signing authority for loans that were made there.
You're right.
But they were laundering the drug and gun money, related, for example, to Iran, Contra, and other stuff. And, in the 60s, it was money being used and vote fraud, by the way, and manipulation being used to overturn elections in all the banana republics. That's what the church committee hearings were about. What church wanted to do in those church committee hearings, in the aftermath of Watergate and things like that, what he was trying to do was get to the systems, the mechanisms that were in play over at CIA and the cooperation and assistance of FBI and other groups to cover it up, to overthrow governments. Chile, Indonesia, stuff throughout Southeast Asia, and then show that these same mechanisms and players had also been involved in assassination of President Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got to a certain point, then they had whistleblowers that came out with the evidence of the MK Ultra stuff. And that diverted the investigations and timed them out on the drugs and other stuff that was in play with programming people in the psychological hospitals and all that. And that was adequate to take off the point. They used something really big that they didn't stop doing, by the way. They learned how to use things to adjust the psychology of individuals. And then they turned around and applied that brain science mapping synapses to a broader public. And that's what's being used against us now within the psychological operations with social media and censoring, to train the broad public to get go along just to avoid pain, and to create social pressures that make it painful to go against the crowd, go against the herd, go against what's acceptable, in order to allow for manipulation in the vote to get people into office that aren't actually who the American people want.
Juan, do you think that's what
they desire?
Do you think that's what they're doing now with Rumble? I mean, Rumble's been hacked a bunch of times already the last 2 weeks. It keeps getting put down, keeps getting down. My site even gets DDoSed, Nino'sCorner.tv. I have a tech team that works on it constantly. Do you think that's what they're doing right now? They're getting ready for the narrative. I also have a feeling they're going to be flooding the internet with disinformation and just garbage to purposely confuse us. Is that going to be part of the method as well as part of this?
Well, they're going to take themes, and have been taking themes where possible, to amplify certain things, trying to get us at each other's throats or to cause confusion. If you look at the biblical narrative, for example, 300 people, Gideon's army, everybody else got sent home. All the tens of thousands of warriors got sent home, and just 300 men snuck into the enemy's camp, tens and tens and tens of thousands that were going to, overrun Israel. Multiple groups spoke different languages coming at them, joining together to go after Israel. And so 300 men went down with a trumpet and a lamp, a lantern. And then they got in close to the camp and then lit their lanterns and blew their horns as though they were against each other. They didn't speak good languages. They woke up out of bed in the middle of the night. Tents are catching on fire. People are killing each other because nobody's got their colors on, their uniform, whatever. They're just running around. And so they destroyed each other in the melee. 300 men got them all fighting each other and defeated this huge army that had come against them. They had leverage because of the fusion that they created. It's the hope that with minimal numbers, true numbers, they can deceive us into fighting each other as Americans and get us into such chaos during some type of social unrest that they can amp that up into civil war. It's like what they were trying to do at January 6th, but there was too many people there. They only had 500 contractors to try and get a melee started. And when the people showed up, they didn't have murder and mayhem and occupying the Capitol in their hearts. And so it didn't succeed ultimately. I'm telling you that it's not in the hearts of the American people right now. And even though they may cause social chaos, financial chaos,
The
vote fraud
the
chaos.
immigrants are going to be the ones that causes the chaos. The immigrants.
Well, and again, there's a large percentage of those that are actually militarized, trained, funded, etc. But it's not tens and tens of millions. Even of the ones coming over the border, the real number's probably down there under 3 million. That's a huge number. But when you look at the broad size of the country, they may cause chaos all over the place. It'll last for a certain period of time, and the American people
Juan,
will deal with
I'll
it.
say this. I was driving by the border wall just recently, and to watch the athleticism of these people that are jumping over the border wall, it looks like Cirque du Soleil. I mean, these people are jumping the fence, landing on their feet. I could never do that, even my prime boxing. These people are scaling the wall and jumping down like military trained soldiers. And I've seen this for weeks. And right now, the border right now is heavily barbed wired. There's Blackhawks flying around. I don't know what they're expecting, but I've never seen this type of activity around the border. And I'm telling you right now, the men that I have seen come over that wall do it in such ease and athleticism. I've never seen anything like that, like an acrobat.
Okay, and the only thing I'll tell you, Nino, is this. Even with 10 to 1, it's very hard to occupy a country. It's very hard to take it over. Strongest military in the world go into Afghanistan, spend long periods of time and don't defeat them, okay? They're dug in, they know their own turf, and they're using, flintlock rifles in some cases, okay?
So are you saying this isn't kinetic?
I have said that. I said it on your show, and I've said it on other shows. How kinetic is a little different story. You cannot have this many people invading the country with murder in their heart, takeover, pillage, the devil himself, gang members, people released from prisons all across the world being flown in and shipped in to do what they're going to do.
Juan, you realize there's a lot of single mothers that watch this program and they're scared out of their minds right now. I mean, what are they?
Can I say it the right way, Nino? Let me say it the right way, and speak directly to them. Those are valid fears. That's a valid concern. You live in Chicago with Capone running the city through his sycophants and his bought and paid for judges and police officers. But you also have a lot of good people. And I've said, be Lot, don't be Lot's wife. If you're in that kind of a situation, I know it's tough, but you probably have to consider options to get a little bit out of the way. A wise man sees trouble and gets out of the way. If you're in occupied France and the Allies are landing at Normandy, do you run out in the middle of the street where the Nazis still are in Paris and start yelling at the Nazis?
No, I'm just
Your
saying
time
a
is
lot of
coming.
these.
You're about to be toast. You're going to be
No, but Juan,
Hey,
a lot of this is different. A lot of these women don't have a 9 to 5 jobs. They're raising their kids alone in an apartment or a small house. What do? I mean, are they just
well, a couple of things. I'll tell you what. This is the moment when churches step up. Today I got to go to a service here in Kampala, Uganda. And the pastor here, he got a call from God back in 2016. He went all around the country, 49 different cities, and did, church meetings. And Uganda is 85% Christian, by the way. So a very heavily Christian population in a tough neighborhood. Uh, uh, Back in the day, Idi Amin, but he was a cannibal. He had some of it for him and then ate them and had them in their freezer, an old girlfriend and like that. The same thing was going on when my friend Gary Harrell was in charge of Black Hawk Down there in Mogadishu. Why were we there? In part, they were there because the warlords were cannibals. And so Uganda went through this horrible, dark time. They've crawled out of it to large measure, but they had a revival. This pastor came back to Kampala, and he did his 50th revival there in Kampala, started it out. He only had 200 people showed up for the first meeting. He and I sat today and had a beautiful conversation. And but within a couple weeks, they had 20,000 people showing up every night. And they had a revival here that's gone on since then, since 2016. They have huge meetings and they've spread it out across the region to these various places. Now, they're not done. There's a lot to be done in Uganda, but there's a move of God that's just phenomenal here. And while they have heavy police presence everywhere, and I've had to have security teams with what I was doing. The reality is that, and I sent you some of the videos of that, so you know that I'm saying the truth there. The reality is that they've got this pretty well, going in a proper direction, and they have wealth under their feet. They're in some kind of move of God that's just amazing, and out through the population, it's just stunning. Everywhere you go, people are saying, praise the Lord and God bless. Even on the radio at the public beach this afternoon, thousands of people there. Just a regular old public beach. They're playing loudspeaker, and over one of the songs that they're singing is "I'm blessed, I'm blessed." Okay, and it's just a rock group. The nature, the demeanor of the population isn't what it used to be. When these people come in like a storm to cause chaos and disaster in America, just like on January 6th, it wasn't in the people's hearts. They were not the monsters that these three-letter agency people had these contractors in to try and leverage and cause them to go into some kind of vast social unrest and rioting and start the insurrection in America right there. Didn't happen. That's why they're so pissed. Even with these people that want to cause the chaos in America, it's going to require other Americans, might be in the churches, might not, to step forward and be the protectors of those single women and kids.
But many of the churches are compromised. A lot of our
They
military is
are.
compromised.
That's why I said it's a revival.
Yeah.
Nino, you have to. There's those that are called, and they step forward and do
But
what
Juan,
they're supposed to
in
do.
other words, this is going to be a big shit sandwich that we all have to take a bite out of. It's not going to be
I've
pretty.
said it's a near-death experience for America, and I don't believe we get through this with no pain. It's not just a bad hair day. It's not a death experience. It's a near-death experience. And when we come through the far side, just like these nations, Somalia has come through that warlord stuff. Uganda is the one that went down there and backfilled after we pulled out, and has brought stability into Somalia. And they're in their own, they're probably 2 decades behind Uganda in getting back on track, but they're headed that direction. They might jump forward massively, and other countries in East Africa are really starting to stabilize. They're not perfect by any
Juan,
stretch.
have we gamed
Don't kid
out?
yourself.
Have we gamed out? I know you've told me supercomputers have gamed this out thousands, if not millions of times. Have we gamed out? I know you said we could lose 13 to 15 cities. Have we gamed out what type of people we could lose? What, I guess, like the elderly, single mothers. What kind of people are we going to lose? Who are going to be the casualties of war? Are you able to talk on that?
Well, a lot of it is going to be decided by the American people. What's your attitude? How are you looking for divine intervention? Literally, either you're going to solve it in the flesh, at a human level, or there's going to be some spiritual intervention that, because the people cry out and want divine assistance, and that's part of the whole operation, to not just have a military or physical response, but to have a response, including in the churches. God brought revival in Uganda, and this place it's quite stunning. To be in those services like it was today is an astonishing thing. It's amazing. I have not seen or been in a service in the United States that I think was as Spirit of God was present and moving strongly like that in decades and decades. And I do attend a fair amount. This was very genuine. It wasn't just surface. It wasn't candy coated and whatever. Very, very powerful service, and the people out through the ranks was very solid. But I also see that in the community, without even just the general population's demeanor, attitudes, conversation is radically different. Before we're done with America, if you're going to go through this and it's a near-death experience, not a death experience, you're going to invoke divine assistance. From the outset, even with the Constitution, Benjamin Franklin said, in my long years of life, and he's the oldest person there, almost double the age of most of the other people there, he said, if a sparrow can't fall from the sky without God knowing it, seeing it, how can a nation rise or fall without God also seeing it and being involved somehow? If we want to stay a nation and survive this, we're going to have to invoke divine protection. We're going to have to humble ourselves before God, ask for assistance, because in the flesh, in the world the way it is, like it or not, if you don't want to hear this conversation, okay, fine, but it's just the way it is. I had somebody the other day, I don't want to talk religion and politics from a nearby country. And I said, well, then, we probably can't really discuss it, because I guarantee you God's involved here. If you don't want to talk about it here in the U.S., fine, then you're not part of that conversation. But I guarantee you there's plenty of God's people in America that get it and are praying for divine assistance and intervention. And It'll be person by person. I'll give you this one story. When there was a survivor back in the 80s when Reagan was in office, there was a 737 that didn't get de-iced properly as it was taking off at the airport there in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And as it was taking off, it lost altitude and it hit a bridge overpass on the highway and then went into the water. And a lot of people in this audience would remember there was a bystander that jumped in the water and saved a stewardess that was, had been, knocked silly, was stunned, was barely, wasn't defending herself. She wasn't coherent, and she's trying to move through the water. One of the survivors gave his testimony about the incident, and about half the people on the plane, as I recall, died. And this survivor said, we knew we were going down. And there was a minute or two as the plane was struggling. It was obvious we weren't going to make it. And he looked across the cabin, and it was like this slow motion thing. He said, the people in those moments lived or died based on what was in their heart. So there was people cursing and cussing and swearing as they were going to their death. And then there was other people that were praying, that were saying the Lord's Prayer at the same time. They're all in the same plane, but some were looking above and others were cursing the moment. That's the same thing that's going to happen here with America. We're going to be challenged. We're going to be in a desperate moment, not too far ahead, because either we address the evil and the corruption and the injustices that are taking place in our name with our life energy, our tax dollars, our stolen votes. Either we choose to address that and get it back on track, or America crashes and burns, and it's a hellish experience, and we're gone. I believe that we're going to look. You're going to have a crash landing. America's not getting through this, and it was just a bad hair day.
Right, but
get over it.
When do you think the chaos will begin? I mean, we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes that I can see. When do you think they pull the chaos card? When this just goes kind of bonkers? Like, when do you think that happens? When they realize they can't get rid of Trump? Because I'm kind of expecting Ron DeSantis to stick around like a stale fart, like a lingering fart, because I think he still believes
DeSantis is a non-issue. He's there.
Okay, so when do they realize, okay, it's game over for us? Let's pull the cord. Let's pull the plug. When do you think?
Do you think that the devil will ever give up to the last second and say, "Okay,
but they have to play the chaos card. When are they going to do that?
Exactly. Well, they're actually on the verge of it right now. They can't loose themselves of this rotting corpse, the image of Biden. They missed their opportunities. These things are all coming to a head.
We're beating them at the chess game. So what they're going to do is just knock over the chess game and put up their arms and go, "We won." That's what they plan to do.
Well, okay, but let me say it this way, and I know it'll annoy some people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I could care less if they like it or not. The ones that should hear it will hear it. In the year of the whistleblower, there was one thing that I repeated privately to a number of people. It's 2023. It's like the 23rd Psalm. Which is about David going to war with Goliath, and he had to cross this open field to engage Goliath. There was rock formations and hills on one side, then an open field, and then rock formation hill on the other side, and neither side could cross it without coming under fire from arrows and rocks and all sorts of things. And then David went down and engaged him. So when the 23rd Psalm is about, yea, though I cross through the valley of the shadow of death, walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He's going to engage a giant, a huge enemy that nobody else was willing to. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. And the very last sentence in the 23rd Psalm, we're at the end of the 23rd Psalm year. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Now you go into chapter 24 of Psalms. And what's the 7th verse? It's that the gates of heaven would open up and the blessing comes in. Well, wait a second. When the enemy comes in like a flood, that's when God raises a standard against him with his people. The gates will open in 2024. That's what this moment is that we're coming into against the flood that the enemy's throwing in at us. If you're looking to scripture, if you're a Christian, if you're somebody that even thinks in any kind of a scriptural way that God might be out there somewhere, I'm telling you that America was founded on a covenant with the Pilgrims. And God is not going to ignore that covenant. So you have to pick a lane. And the lane is, are you going to be in alignment with what God's will is for America based on that covenant? You think there's any time differential in the divine? It's as current 400 years later after the Pilgrims got here as it was the day that they made that covenant with God. If you're going to be on the winning side, you get on the side of the covenant. This is a nation founded for the purpose of religious freedom, not living under the bloodline families, the royal families who got to rule and reign over everybody based on their who they were born to. And there's certain things that God has promised about America. Even Benjamin Franklin recognized that, okay? If you want to be on the winning team, that's where you start. And that 24th Psalm is the theme, my belief is the theme for America coming into 2024. And a gate is going to open to bless God's people and give us energy, strength, momentum when the enemy rises up against us like a flood. Well, they are going to come against us like a flood. But for those that are looking to God, that are looking to Christ for some divine assistance, that's where you're going to have something to come against it with. And if you're an individual, if you're a single mother and you have children and you're not praying, I don't know what to tell you. I bet you every one of those single mothers.
Well, there's
even
also
if
something
they're-
else they can do. They can hire Sancho. One I can.
I mean, I don't want to make
The
too
Sancho will
light
make
of
his
it. I
own-
do sort of.
We'll
I
give
do
you
sort of
services.
make light of it, but I don't want to be too light on it. This is serious stuff. I understand the strain, and it's about to get real. That's my belief. You
Juan,
guys
can I
have
just
both.
say? Can I just say that this is the best interview you've ever done? Would you agree, Ron?
Oh, yeah,
This is hands down fire. This is the best interview Juan has ever done. I think.
Yeah, he's bringing the fire today.
He's bringing the heat.
The fire today. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Juan.
100%.
I'm going to tell you right now. This is the best interview you've ever done.
Well, I'll let you guys be the judge. The main thing is, look, I've watched and participated with and been in the room with whistleblowers since I was very young. I've had the distinct honor to converse and try to work with. And these are, many of them aren't here today. And they dreamed of this moment when it finally would come to a head in various lanes. I have tremendous respect for guys like Mike Gill. I have tremendous respect for the Flynn's. I have tremendous respect for Pat Byrne. and many others. And by the way, Trump himself, the Megador. Why is it that I have that imagery? Because it's not just taking on the Justice Department. It's not just taking on corruption in the military or the military-industrial complex. People that would murder presidents. It's not just the three-letter agencies. Remember, the director of national intelligence over at Homeland Security said there was evidence of foreign interference in the election in 2020. What's happened because of that? And then they didn't provide the report timely so that it could be acted on by Congress on January 6th. Has anybody gone to jail, lost their job, been exposed over that? You want to talk about a whistleblower? He came out and whistleblowed. The FBI, the CIA, three-letter agencies aren't giving us the information. Cybersecurity is not cooperating. Who lost their job when they were in violation of an executive order concerning foreign interference in the election? That's a whistleblower.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many whistleblowers, and someday there'll have to be the unknown, monument to the unknown whistleblower, and whistleblowers who didn't get credit in all this. We have lots and lots of whistleblowers. One of the ones that I dealt with directly, I just want to tell you about this one. I dealt with one directly. Beautiful gal. She wanted to do something. She had all this evidence. I says, and she's, yeah, a family member that is sick. Let's try to do this some way else and not make you fall on the sword, or at least wait for the right moment when we can do it and doesn't put this family member in peril. There's times we have to back down, but she had put together a tremendous amount of material that has been useful in getting us to the right places on some of these financial crimes. There's people all over the place that have come out, stood their ground, did what they had to do, and they'll probably never really get recognized, or they did it somewhat covertly, released something and you didn't know about it. Look at what Seth Rich did. Seth Rich, with his release of the DNC records, paid for it with his life, and arguably pushed the 2016 election over the top with a Trump win, with the disclosures of the spirit cooking, the Podesta information, the communications with Hillary and things like that. In many ways, look at Assange and how he's been victimized. There's lots of people who have done amazing things. And I mean, I could just go down the list. I probably put 100 names down that I've known personally at various times.
Yeah,
put it all in the one.
Not one is acting like a savior, though.
Well, but there's been guys where I've kind of nudged them and said, hey, man, a superhero syndrome. This is a team effort. Okay, we're all in this together, and we're working together. And you have to be careful. You don't want to get out in front of your skis. This is a really tough one. So we take a deep breath and we try to work the problem and get there together, including allowing enough room that the rest of the army shows up at the same time, so that we come up against this flood of the enemy. Guys, if the enemy's going to rise up against us like a flood, we have to be prepared by divine assistance to rise up also and nullify it. And it's not going to be simple.
Well, I got to get going. My dad just called me for the Dallas game. I can't miss it with my old man. And I got to say that this has been the best interview. I got to put this up tonight, and I will be putting this on Rumble tomorrow. So this is going up on Nino'sCorner.tv tonight and tomorrow Rumble. This is going to be big. Juan, this has been amazing. Thank you, Ron. Thank you. But guys, I got to go. I hope
it's quite understandable. Quite understandable.
Right.
It was I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk more.
Oh, we'll get more chances, but everybody take a deep breath. We're going to get through this together. God give light to all of those that are listening tonight, and in their own personal situation, a path forward for them individually, your way, your plan for them to get through this by your grace. In Jesus' name, by the blood of Christ, make it so.
Amen.
Love you guys.
Juan, you
Amen.